So, hello everybody. I'll start from the idea that artists often initiate discussions, provoke reactions, tensions, they dialogue, and there are many ways to integrate those phenomena, which we call artistic critique, in the institutional discourses. So there are many ways to represent what artists do in critical way. And there are also ways that allow artistic critique to be absorbed by those discourses in the name of an emerging creative class. This happens because the language of dissent, which today shapes communities united by the social media, is also able to animate the entrepreneurial neoliberal spirit. And this spirit fuels the demand for unconventional ways of seeing and acting, and this is in order to increase your productivity, in order to increase your human capital, or what we call human resources. That creative class is often guided, just as an artist is guided, by the critique as well as by most mystical and most meaningful of all capitalist slogans, which is think outside the box, be unconventional, do things in new, unusual ways, etc. And become more productive, of course. Contemporary cultural and educational policy debates are full of common proposals to solve social and urban problems in a creative way. So we know many of those ways, but I just want to shortly clarify what I mean by this neoliberal spirit. And I connected with the policies, the public policies, when common social democratic consensus surrendered to market-oriented mentality worldwide, and it happened with the advent of new politicians in the US and Anglo-Saxon world, in Great Britain with Thatcher and Reagan, and it spread to Australia with its creative nation concept. It also spread in Western European countries. So this was the situation in cultural policy. Then subsidies were basically justified only with reference to art's contribution to the economy. And so, therefore, artists and artistic critique and art became culture industry or creative industry later. So this reflected a common sense economic reductionism. So here I will look at some interventions in Vilnius urban space and will question ways in which this ambivalent artistic critique gets represented. So after the Cold War, in the whole post-communist world, public discussions reflected this specific development, and these were main lines like nationalistic narrative or national development and liberal pro-market ideas. The very leftist critique of capitalism was rejected because it was perceived as direct Hayekian road to serfdom, according to that famous Hayek book, Road to Serfdom, which was translated into Lithuanian very shortly after we got independence. So since those times, early 90s, Lithuania has been caught in repetitive periods of privatization, property development, and also ensuing demolition of old forms of life. It was visible that real estate businesses have joined, for example, corrupt municipal bureaucracies or municipal authorities in order to redevelop the cities, and profit has been the only motive. So profit is something which is not bad in itself, but I'm pointing towards that phenomenon that it became the new value for the whole society. And public space, landmark buildings, also critical public opinion in the media have been principal victims in the economic development. This was followed by the insistence to make Lithuania look like Western European country, or cities look like common Western European cities. And part of this rhetoric said that the best way to do this is to privatize public property by scrubbing the Soviet past and its architectural and urban forms. Well, so that to make the country attractive to even more investment and even more development. Public spaces such as cultural houses, of course they were crumbling after the Soviet times, many of them, but especially the cinemas as shells became centers of attraction for the real estate market. new private owners managed in short time to take over and destroy almost every cinema in Vilnius, and they were turned into apartment buildings, supermarkets, shops. Then few multiplexes replaced movie theaters. Multiplex Hollywood movies also came to the cities, and it meant demolition of independent film programming. More than 15 cinema theaters disappeared, and the last was called Lietuvos, or Lithuania. It was an important signifier of national identity because of its name. It was never called Soviet Lithuania, for example. It was always Lietuva, Lithuania, from 1965 when it was built. And significantly, it was the largest cinema in Lithuania with more than 1,000 seats and huge screen, and it also was the home for Vilnius Film Festival. But in 2002, Vilnius municipality quietly sold the cinema to private developers, and it was the condition that it had to operate for 3 more years as a movie theater. But after that period, after it ended, after the term ended, in July 2005, the protest to save that cinema began, and it was caused by dissatisfaction of the above-mentioned policies. Important to say that it was the first urban protest in Lithuania, which started as a symbolic fight for Lietuva, for what we had left, the last movie theater. It was aimed at reclaiming that tacitly privatized space, and activists opposed the shady deals between municipality and the investors. So this fight began not so much so that to secure the building in its recent form, as it's shown here, but as a fight for the public space which was shrinking. So the space within already closed movie theater was programmed for events. The part of the facilities was squatted and converted into protest lab, and it was constructed, quote, as a spatial device to register the scenario of protest and generate an action, end quote. And it was joined by over 150 people, including architecture students, Green Party activists, some politicians, vegans, anarchists, musicians, students from TV and cinema school, film people, community leaders, etc. So the open form of protest scenario was set. These were audio, video interviews, text schemes, posters, performances, or other expressions that represented wishes of the citizens. So there were lots of temporal campaigns that happened around that protest, so I'm not going to talk about all of them. There are public materials available of that, but this one was made after an event when George W. Bush visited Lithuania in 2002, and he made the speech, the famous speech on Vilnius town hall staircase by also declaring, among other things, that from now on, whoever becomes the enemy of Lithuania, he will be the enemy of the United States. So those protesters took that phrase and put it as a slogan, put the masks of George W. Bush on their faces, and they said like, hey America, could you help now and save Lithuania from Lithuanian developers? So these are funny things, and also lots of discussions were staged. It spread in the media, and these are funny auctions that next to the famous landmark sites, funny signs were put like sold out. People would wake up in the morning and see that important buildings are sold out, like bridges and the museum, which is now the National Gallery on the left-hand side. So there was a particular sense of collectivity in all these performances. Intense discussions through an internet mailing list forum too, because we had no Facebook then. But from the beginning, the action also had a strong sense of artistic individualism because of that famous couple, Nomeda and Gedvinas Urbonas, the artist couple, who somehow developed that into their own artwork eventually. And they took the models, the documentation, and made the artworks by putting them into prestigious events. like Venice Biennale, and this created some ambiguity, because on the one hand we saw this mailing list community coming from below, and collective actions, all sorts of voices coming from common citizens, common people. On the other hand, we have this phenomenon of individual representation, the authorship at least, so that is hardly consistent maybe at some points or in eyes of some people. So here I just want to share a perfect compromise, as I see it, on how this collective dissent or dissatisfaction or protest might be represented in an institution. Because if we want to remember somehow significant activities, significant histories of the community in our cultural imagination, well, it has to be placed in the institution. So the protest lab today is showcased at the Center for Civil Education in the Presidential Palace, which opened this year in March 2016, which is a public exhibition space representing the state in a form of cooperation between citizens. So these are artifacts, remnants from all performances that people did, and Gediminas and Nomeda Urbonai together. They initiated actually many performances. So this is a video by them showed on the screen, and models of those different events next to Lietuvos movie theater. So the very idea of state is understood through the lens of civic actions. And the center is not exactly the museum in its traditional sense. So those activities here are represented by excluding the idea of the artist as an author. No one is the author, because the authorship belongs to the civic community, not individuals, and it's hard to see it from slides or just if I showed more pictures. But if you go there, you wouldn't see that stress put on individual. It is the community. So there was another collaborative action which was started already deliberately by Urbonai, the Guggenheim Visibility Study. And it started in 2008 as a research group conceived to interrogate the geographers of Vilnius Guggenheim Museum project and produce a set of viable alternatives. Well, they again responded to issues of spatial justice. And this time it was not an open protest at all, as in the movie theater case. It was some full of humor set of creative performances. Young artistic community from Vilnius, from Norway to where Nomeda is teaching, came together for an independent educational experiment. At the time, the Lithuanian media was full of heated discussions regarding the development of the Guggenheim Museum project. Basically, it was hailed and praised in the media because no one was really thinking about it as a controversial project, although it was. And those young people brought lots of sarcasm in that rhetoric and into the concept of culture industries as well. So formal and informal processes of modeling city space came together in parallel ways. For example, during the summer 2008, 3 architectural models for the museum were proposed by famous architects Zaha Hadid, Daniel Libeskind, and Massimiliano Fuchsas, world-famous stars. And at the same time, those models were mocked or redesigned by the Guggenheim Visibility Study Group to respond to those social issues absent in the official original architectural competition, such as the need for social housing and equal distribution of space. So the official discourse was about the feasibility study, and the students did that visibility with V, like they refer to something which should be visible, not just feasible. And it was generated models after those big names, models that exemplified sustainable architecture. These were funny shelters that students also brought to the White Bridge because these structures were devoted exactly to the site where the Guggenheim was about to be built, also next to this site where we sit. Those funny pageants of students working together looked quite quite telling. And I'm quoting the project. This particular social housing, this project is an invitation to imagine and develop alternative habitats on the proposed Guggenheim Vilnius project site on behalf of those disempowered and excluded from the planning of modernist cultural projects. The aim of the study is to develop a hybrid social model and proposal for temporary housing, specifically tents, so these look like tents, as well as more dignified conditions for those in need of shelter, end quote. So all this looked like innocent talk, some blabbering, mimicking that official statement about the museum. And officially it was said that the Guggenheim will turn our cultural policy and the economy into a very positive way, and Vilnius will boost, etc., etc. Which was kind of not true. It didn't come out, of course. And interestingly, the Guggenheim Visibility Study action coincided with global artistic concern about social issues as well. It happened in 2009. Then Human Rights Watch published a report detailing alarming conditions and human rights violations on Savyad Island in Abu Dhabi, where a new Guggenheim Museum was to be built, and where the other museums proposed, the Louvre and other important institutions. But the Guggenheim was like landmark building there. So artists started fighting for the workers' rights there. The awful conditions, the precarious state of those migrant workers who were building those future cultural sites on Savyad Island, which means the island of happiness. It ignited anger, and the Guggenheim is, as I said, just one institution which was doing that. So several dozen artists, curators, cultural producers launched the Gulf Labor Artist Coalition with the intention to protect the rights of the migrant workers during the construction of the museum. Among those initiatives were public programs, exhibitions such as participation in Venice Biennale, the artist platform 52 weeks, research trips, so these researches were made to Emirates, but also to the countries where some of the workers came from. It was, for example, the Precarious Workers pageant at the Venice Biennale, which pointed out or questioned the solidification of global capital in architecture. Most recently, Gulf labor protest has taken the form of a publication, the Gulf High Culture Hot Labor. And well, I'm just showing some of the examples from there. In 2015, members of different fraction of the protest unveiled the large parachute in the Guggenheim Museum, famous Rotunda in Fifth Avenue in New York, those words, and they were throwing leaflets on the heads of visitors and sponsors. There are different initiatives with that project, and so artists together with other creatives, they basically respond to the financial crisis. So the Occupy movement, for example, protested in 2012 against Freeze, the famous art fair, which has franchises in different cities, for its use of non-unionized labor and contemporary art's predominant function as luxury for the rich. And there are other ways how artistic critique is used by some radically minded activists. No, I'm not talking about him. It is really difficult to include such anti-artistic position into the museum discourses. Those pageants, working, sitting, sending collective emails, making video interviews, posters, performances, is what George Cholet called collectivism after modernism. And it marked a shift within those practices of visual arts as focus on art as a given institutional and linguistic structure to an active intervention in the world of mass culture. Maybe it's possible to speculate on how to accommodate such phenomenon of collective protest in the museum space without treating those forms of activities and artwork or the industries of protest, which become just another form of entertainment or creative industries. So for this critique, I also want to turn a little bit to Claire Bishop ideas in her famous article, Antagonism and Relational Aesthetics, which she wrote more than 10 years ago already, but it still pertains to that recent situation. And she talked about relational artwork and its established encounters in which meaning is elaborated in collective way. She also wrote about production of social relationship through our environment and questioned from different angles the idea of contemporary artist as troubleshooter, because the artist is sometimes shown as coming to the community, working together with people, solving some problem, and doing this, doing that, and well, instead of authorities, basically, because the artist is taken as someone who could solve those issues that authorities cannot solve. So the artwork, in any case, is always as open-ended and semi-functional. Bishop brought forward here Laclau and Mouffe theory of democracy as antagonism, which can be seen in some works of art. And she was against the idea of work of art as perpetual flux art factory, where laboratory becomes space of leisure and entertainment. So she didn't mention that creative industries concept, but of course it's there. It's exactly this problem which she was talking about. And it's hard to foresee or predict then action employing what we call artistic critique slips into the field of entertainment. And well, I have some probably bad examples which I'm not going to talk now, but this Center for Civic Education showcase in my mind was quite positive in a way it exposed those phenomena. The boundaries of critical position cannot be set. They are dynamic, depending on different circumstances. So in 2005, protesters were united by the mailing list. Today we probably have something like Facebook event. We are tagging things, but tomorrow we don't know, we cannot predict yet what means of communication will come out of development of IT. So maybe it is important to simply remember the language of collectivity, those temporal imagined communities united by some media, not just creativity. For this, we also need to somehow overcome the demand for individual authorship, which is equivalent of big names in the museum. This collectivity happens, then artists get out of the institutional bubble and come together with those disempowered, come with other social groups and work together against the status quo, against existing social order. But I will finish here because I don't have the ready answer to how to combine those things, but this is another Greek artist which is maybe not time for that kind of protest yet. Thank you.
Maybe someone has a question, just one, because we need to keep time.
Su ekspozicija. Su kokiu muziejum? Daugiau akcentuočiau gal ekspoziciją, ir ekspozicija, pavyzdžiui, kuri tam valstybės pažinimo centre yra ne muziejinė, bet kita vertus tai yra būdas reprezentuoti protestą, kuris mano manymu yra labai vykęs. Bet taip, tai nėra tas tradicinis muziejus jokiais būdais, nes tai yra kita institucija. Ir galbūt yra kitų būdų eksponuoti tuos dalykus, bet jie bet kokiu atveju yra įtraukiami dažnai į muziejus naratyvus įvairiais būdais, kurie ne visi pasiteisina, mano manymu. O Lietuvos kino teatro atvejis tai be abejo yra ypatingai išskirtinis ir čia mes galėtume daug kalbėti.
Turbūt reikia palikti tai diskusijai, nes mes turime tęsti. Labai ačiū, Skaidra.